You're sitting on the couch watching David Hasselhoff save someone from drowning on Baywatch. Pretty standard stuff. Now imagine tuning in next week and watching him fight a sea monster, or a vampire, or a mummy. That actually happened, and we're going to talk about it. Between the 1970s and early 2000s, television networks pulled off some of the most audacious creative gambles in entertainment history. They took beloved characters from hit shows and dropped them into completely different genres. Sitcoms became dramas. Live-action shows turned into cartoons. Detective procedurals went supernatural. Some of these experiments produced landmark television. Others became cautionary tales that network executives still whisper about in development meetings today. I'm counting down 13 spin-offs that abandoned everything their parent shows were known for, and we're going to find out which ones actually worked. If you're into TV history and nostalgic deep dives like this, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. Number 13. Laverne and Shirley in the Army.
Laverne, let's join the army! What, girl?
We're starting with a show that represents an entire era of television's strangest decisions. In the early 1980s, Hanna-Barbera had a peculiar business model. They would take ABC's biggest primetime sitcom hits and turn them into Saturday morning cartoons. And I don't mean cartoons that captured the spirit of the original. I mean cartoons that added talking animals and supernatural adventures to shows that had absolutely none of those things. Laverne and Shirley was a blue-collar sitcom about two friends working at a Milwaukee brewery. The animated spin-off was called Laverne and Shirley in the Army, and it premiered on October 10th, 1981. Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams voiced their characters in the first season. Williams was replaced in Season 2 after she quit the live-action series. But here's where it gets weird. Instead of the brewery, our heroines were now at Camp Fillmore, where they encountered aliens, werewolves, Bigfoot, and a talking pig sergeant named Squealy, voiced by Ron Palillo from Welcome Back, Kotter. Yes, a talking pig sergeant named Squealy. The show ran for 2 seasons before mercifully ending. It was part of a wave that included the Fonz and the Happy Days gang, which sent Fonzie on time travel adventures, and Partridge Family 2200 AD, which inexplicably relocated the Partridge Family to a Jetsons-like future with zero explanation. This entire trend was a lesson in how not to handle beloved characters. The audience wanted Laverne and Shirley. They didn't want them fighting Bigfoot. Number 12. The Lone Gunmen.
They use this magnetic strip to track you. Whenever you go through a metal detector at an airport, they know exactly how much you're carrying and where you're carrying it to.
Now let's talk about what happens when you take a dark, atmospheric sci-fi horror show and turn it into a slapstick comedy. The X-Files was one of the defining shows of the 1990s. Moody, frightening, built on paranoia, and the unknown. The Lone Gunmen were 3 comic relief conspiracy theorists who showed up occasionally to help Mulder and Scully. In 2001, Fox decided these 3 nerds deserved their own show. Co-created by Vince Gilligan, who would later create Breaking Bad, The Lone Gunmen premiered on March 4th, 2001. The concept was essentially Mission Impossible with geeks. The tonal shift was jarring. The X-Files dealt with alien abductions and government cover-ups. The Lone Gunmen featured blind football teams and super intelligent chimpanzees. And most critically, the show contained absolutely no supernatural or alien elements whatsoever. The core DNA of the X-Files was completely absent. The pilot gained eerie retrospective notoriety for depicting a remote-controlled plane being flown into the World Trade Center. It aired 6 months before September 11th, 2001. Reviews were actually decent, but ratings dropped steadily. Only 13 episodes aired. The characters were later killed off in a 9th season X-Files episode, which felt like the show admitting the spin-off had been a mistake. Gilligan later said he was still proud of it, but acknowledged it just didn't click with the audience. The problem was obvious. People watching the X-Files wanted paranormal horror, not nerd comedy. Number 11. Star Trek the Animated Series. Here's a rare example of a live-action to animation conversion that actually worked.
All right, you mutinous, disloyal, computerized half-breed, we'll see about you deserting my ship.
After Star Trek was canceled in 1969, fans kept the flame alive through conventions and syndication. By 1973, NBC decided to bring it back as a Saturday morning cartoon. Now, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. But something remarkable happened. The people making it actually cared. Nearly the entire original cast returned. William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, James Doohan, Nichelle Nichols, George Takei, and Majel Barrett. When the studio considered having Doohan and Barrett voice all the secondary roles to save money, Nimoy refused to participate unless Takei and Nichols were included. He argued they represented essential diversity on the Enterprise. That's the kind of integrity that elevated this project. Story editor D.C. Fontana recruited professional science fiction writers, including Larry Niven and David Gerrold. At $75,000 per episode, it was the most expensive voice cast for a Saturday morning series at the time. The show treated animation as an opportunity rather than a limitation. They could depict alien environments that would have been impossible with 1960s special effects budgets. The animated series won the 1975 Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Entertainment Children's Series. That was the first Emmy in Star Trek history. Over 22 episodes across 2 seasons, it became known as the franchise's unofficial 4th season. This is what happens when you respect your source material instead of just cashing in on it. Number 10. Benson. Sometimes a genre shift succeeds by making things simpler, not more complex. Soap, which ran from 1977 to 1981, was one of the most experimental comedies of its era. It was a deliberately over-the-top, serialized parody of soap operas, featuring cliffhangers, alien abduction, organized crime, cults, and actual demonic possession. It was wild. Serialized television before serialized television was cool. Robert Guillaume played Benson, a sharp-tongued butler working for the wealthy Tate family. In 1979, ABC spun him off into his own show. But here's the thing. Benson threw out everything that made soap unique. Gone was the serialization. Gone was the absurdism. Gone were the aliens and exorcisms. Benson was placed in a governor's mansion in a purely episodic, a self-contained, gentle workplace sitcom. And it worked. Benson ran for 7 seasons and 158 episodes. That's 3 years longer than soap itself. Guillaume won the Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series in 1985. The show was a steady performer for ABC throughout the early 1980s. Sometimes the audience doesn't want experimental. They want comfortable. Benson proved that stripping away complexity could actually expand your viewership. Number 9. Boston Legal.
Get control of the room, will you, Judge?
What happens when you take a grim, award-winning legal drama and turn it into something that breaks the fourth wall and features William Shatner at his most unhinged? You get one of the most beloved legal comedies of the 2000s. The Practice won Emmys for Outstanding Drama Series in 1998 and 1999. It was dark, morally complex, about struggling defense attorneys facing ethical dilemmas. Then, in its final season, 2 new characters showed up. Alan Shore, played by James Spader, and Denny Crane, played by William Shatner. When these characters got their own show in October 2004, creator David E. Kelley built something completely unrecognizable from The Practice. Boston Legal featured absurdist plotlines, sharp political satire, and regular fourth wall breaking. The buddy dynamic between the eccentric Spader and the bombastic Shatner defined the show. They'd end episodes sitting on a balcony, drinking scotch, saying things directly to the camera that no character on The Practice would have dreamed of. Over 5 seasons and 101 episodes, Boston Legal earned 26 Emmy nominations and won 5, including 2 each for Shatner and Spader. It received a Peabody Award in 2005 and holds an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was never a massive ratings hit, but it drew what was described as the richest viewing audience on television. Boston Legal proved that going from drama to comedy could work just as well as the reverse, if you had the right talent. Number 8. Angel.
If it's alive, we kill it. If it's not, we bury it. You in?
Now we're getting into the shows that genuinely understood how to execute a genre shift. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was quippy, pop culture infused, and built on a simple metaphor. High school is hell. It was teen horror with a sense of humor. When the brooding vampire Angel got his own show in October 1999, creator Joss Whedon made a deliberate choice to build something tonally distinct. Angel wasn't set in sunny Sunnydale. It was set in gritty Los Angeles. The aesthetic wasn't teen horror. It was film noir. The first episode featured a Philip Marlowe-style voiceover. Producer Kelly Manners was explicit about the show's intentions, describing it as a dark show about a man looking for redemption, with an explicit alcoholism metaphor running through Angel's struggle with his vampire nature. Characters underwent transformations that would have been impossible within Buffy's framework. Wesley went from comic relief to haunted demon hunter. The show asked harder questions about morality and compromise. Different city, different tone, different thematic focus, different narrative structure. Angel ran for 5 seasons and 110 episodes. It earned critical acclaim and developed a devoted cult following, though it never matched Buffy's ratings. But that wasn't really the point. The point was creating something that justified its own existence, rather than just coasting on its parent show's goodwill. Angel proved that spin-offs could be genuinely, artistically distinct. Number 7. The Brady Bunch Hour.
Well, the kids are going to be singing and dancing disco songs, and they didn't figure they'd have enough energy for the introduction, too.
Oh, wait a minute. Aren't we going to dance and sing?
Well, sure.
What makes the kids think we've got the energy to do this introduction?
Let's talk about one of the most legendarily bad ideas in television history. The Brady Bunch ended in 1974. 2 years later, ABC President Fred Silverman saw the Brady cast appear on Donnie and Marie to strong ratings, and had a vision. What if the Bradys became a variety act? The Brady Bunch Variety Hour, later renamed the Brady Bunch Hour, premiered on November 28, 1976. It was produced by Sid and Marty Krofft, and notably, series creator Sherwood Schwartz had no creative input. He reportedly didn't want to deprive his former cast of employment, but he wasn't enthusiastic about the concept. The show featured the Brady family singing, dancing, and performing sketch comedy around a gigantic swimming pool inspired by Esther Williams movies. The behind-the-scenes drama was almost more entertaining than the show itself. Eve Plum refused to commit to a potential 5-year run, so producers auditioned over 1,500 replacements and cast Gary Reichel as what fans immediately dubbed Fake Jan, a nickname Reichel has openly embraced. Robert Reed, a classically trained Shakespearean actor who had famously clashed with Schwartz over the original sitcom's quality, apparently struggled with the format. Executive Bonnie Dorr described trying to teach Robert Reed to move as the single funniest thing in the world, and, of course, a disaster. The premiere attracted roughly 15.7 million viewers. The audience dropped by nearly half before the episode ended. Only 9 episodes aired. TV Guide later ranked the series number 4 on its list of the 50 worst TV shows ever. Every Brady reunion project since has pretended it never happened. Some genre shifts fail because the execution is poor. This one failed because the concept was fundamentally misguided. Number 6. Galactica, 1980. Here's a show so bad that its own writers actively rooted for its cancellation.
Starbuck, I have brought you a surprise.
The original Battlestar Galactica was a sweeping, high-budget space opera that aired in 1978 and 79. It had intense Cylon battles, complex characters, and serious stakes. When ABC brought the franchise back in January 1980, what arrived was almost unrecognizable. Galactica 1980 was forced into a 7 p.m. Sunday time slot, which meant it had to include educational content and minimize violence. A BC censor, Susan Futterman, restricted even shooting at Cylon robots. Story editor Alan Cole said it made the show impossible to work on. The original concept involved Apollo and Starbuck chasing Baltar through time travel, a concept Donald Belisario later developed into Quantum Leap. But ABC gutted it. Instead, audiences got colonial warriors in civilian clothes on contemporary Earth, protecting super scouts, children with near superhuman abilities. Only Lorne Greene returned as a regular cast member. Richard Hatch turned it down. Greene's return was actually unplanned. Creator Glenn Larson later revealed that Greene called him heartbroken about not being included, so Larson rehired him, but he admitted it probably would have been better to move forward some generations. The show's own writers would chant, "Come on, 13," every morning. 13 being the rating threshold for cancellation. Only 10 episodes aired. The sole universally praised installment was the finale, The Return of Starbuck, featuring Dirk Benedict in a guest appearance. Larson reportedly planned to reveal the entire series was Starbuck's bad dream, which honestly would have been merciful. This is what happens when network mandates crush creative vision. Number 5. Baywatch Nights. Remember what I said at the beginning about David Hasselhoff fighting sea monsters? Let's dive into that fever dream.
You are the future. They are the present. When your times come together, you will be one again.
Baywatch Nights started as something relatively normal. Season 1, premiering September 30th, 1995, was a straightforward detective procedural. Hasselhoff's Mitch Buchanan moonlighted as a private investigator. Fine, makes sense. Lifeguard by day, PI by night. Then, ratings disappointed. Producers looked at what was dominating television, The X-Files, and they made one of the most desperate creative pivots in TV history. Season 2 featured sea monsters, vampires, werewolves, mummies, aliens, time travel, parallel universes, voodoo cults, and demonic possession. The Hasselhoff and Angie Harmon pairing was reframed as a Mulder and Scully dynamic. They added a paranormal investigator character. The new opening credits featured creepy shots of skulls and stuffed wolves, with Mitch walking past a backlit cemetery fence. Critics were not kind. Nathan Rabin called it a miscalculation of historic proportions, describing how the show decided that monsters were suddenly real, and it was now Mitch's job to stop them. Den of Geek identified the fundamental problem. Trying to make a show about monsters and the supernatural on a Baywatch budget produced dodgy creature effects and a disorienting number of Batman 66-style Dutch angles. The show earned a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes across 2 seasons and 44 episodes. Interestingly, the executive story editors, Chad and Carrie Hayes, brought legitimate horror expertise. They later wrote the Conjuring franchise. But even talented horror writers couldn't save a show chasing a trend its budget couldn't support. Number 4. Trapper, John M.D.
Possible ruptured spleen or lacerated liver.
Oh, did I say that?
No, but you will.
Now, let's look at a genre shift that actually succeeded, despite having no involvement from the original creative team. MASH was a military comedy dramedy that ran from 1972 to 1983. Trapper John M.D. imagined what happened to Trapper John McIntyre 28 years after Korea. He was now chief of surgery at a San Francisco hospital. The show premiered September 23, 1979, with Pernell Roberts replacing Wayne Rogers in the role. The tone was fundamentally different. A straight medical drama with occasional humor, not a sitcom. Here's where it gets legally interesting. The MASH TV producers sued, claiming the spin-off was based on Wayne Rogers' television portrayal. The Trapper John team successfully argued it was derived from the 1970 film and Richard Hooker's novel, making it legally a movie spin-off, not a TV spin-off. This ruling effectively severed all MASH connections after the pilot. The show ranked 19th in its first season with a 21.2 household rating and remained a top 30 hit for most of its 7-season, 151-episode run. It tackled serious subjects including AIDS and PTSD. One reviewer noted that they had serious situations and real emotion, with some laughs here and there, but it wasn't sitcom-type material. Trapper John M.D. proved that the comedy-to-drama formula could work repeatedly. Number 3. AfterMASH. This might be the most instructive failure on our list, because its own creator diagnosed exactly what went wrong. When MASH ended with its legendary finale in 1983, series architect Larry Gelbart created AfterMASH. It reunited Harry Morgan, Jamie Farr, and William Christopher. They were the only main cast members who wanted the series to continue. The setting was a Missouri VA hospital. The format remained a half-hour comedy, and the problem was fundamental. Transplanting these characters from a Korean war zone to peacetime America drained the premise of its essential dramatic engine. Season 1 actually performed well, finishing 15th out of 101 network shows. Then, CBS made a fatal decision. They moved the show to Tuesday nights, directly opposite NBC's The A-Team. Ratings plummeted to 72nd out of 77 shows. AfterMASH became the first CBS series canceled in the 1984-85 season. Only 31 episodes were produced. The critical legacy was brutal. Time magazine named it one of the 100 worst ideas of the century in 1999. TV Guide ranked it the 7th worst TV series ever in 2002. But here's what makes this valuable. Gelbart himself identified the problem. He said the series needed a top banana, and they didn't have one. If he had to do it over again, he would make it an hour show, more dramatic in nature, with comedy overtones rather than the other way around. William Christopher agreed, saying the network wanted a zany comedy, but he thought they should have done an hour show like St. Elsewhere. A lot of veterans came back with problems, but instead they were doing wheelchair races. The lesson is clear. AfterMASH didn't fail because it shifted genres. It failed because it didn't shift genres enough. Number 2. Mork and Mindy. This might be the single most dramatic genre leap in spin-off history, and it actually worked. Happy Days was an entirely realistic, warmly nostalgic portrait of 1950s Milwaukee teen life. No fantasy elements, no science fiction, just Richie Cunningham and the Fonz navigating the Eisenhower era.
Listen, I'll tell you something, you're gonna have a great time, and don't worry about a thing, all right? Just relax. All right.
Then, in February 1978, capitalizing on Star Wars mania, an alien named Mork from the planet Ork appeared. Initially framed as Richie's dream, Robin Williams' manic energy was so electrifying that producers spun him off into his own show. But they didn't just create a spin-off, they changed everything. The era shifted from the 1950s to the present day. The setting moved from Milwaukee to Boulder, Colorado. The genre transformed from nostalgia sitcom to science fiction comedy. The comedic approach pivoted from warm family humor to improvisational absurdism.
Is your spouse as affectionate now as when you first married?
As one critic observed, the appearance of an extraterrestrial on the otherwise grounded series should have been jarring. Mork and Mindy premiered September 14th, 1978, with Pam Dauber as Mindy. It finished in the top 3 in its debut season, making Williams a superstar. Ratings declined sharply after ABC moved it from Thursday to Sunday nights, and it was canceled after 4 seasons and 95 episodes. But the initial success was undeniable. Mork and Mindy proved that audiences would follow a concept into radically unfamiliar territory, if the talent was transcendent enough. Number 1. Lou Grant. And finally, we arrive at the gold standard. The genre shift that shouldn't have worked, but became legendary television. The Mary Tyler Moore Show ended in March 1977 after 7 seasons of beloved half-hour sitcom comedy. Co-creators James L. Brooks and Alan Burns had a commitment to build a new vehicle for Ed Asner. Inspired by All the President's Men, they made a radical choice. Transplant Lou Grant, a character audiences knew exclusively through comedy, into a serious movie-style drama set in a Los Angeles newsroom. Gene Reynolds, who was simultaneously producing MASH, came aboard as co-creator and executive producer. The shift was total. 3-camera studio sitcom became single-camera hour-long drama. Minneapolis became Los Angeles. Comedy became journalism, drama tackling serious social issues. Lou Grant premiered September 20th, 1977. Ed Asner later reflected on the risk. They were really worried about changing from a 3-camera, half-hour comedy to a 1-camera, full-hour drama. The audience wasn't ready for the switch. Even CBS billed them in their promos as a comedy. The whole thing, he said, was impossible. The impossible thing worked. Over 5 seasons and 114 episodes, Lou Grant won 13 Primetime Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Drama Series twice. Asner became the first actor to win Emmys for both lead actor in a drama and supporting actor in a comedy for the same character. Nancy Marchand won Outstanding Supporting Actress in 4 of the show's 5 seasons. The show earned a Peabody Award and 2 Golden Globes. Its first 3 seasons averaged a 19.6 Nielsen household rating. See, cancellation in 1982 was controversial, widely attributed to advertiser boycotts over Asner's political activism as SAG president rather than ratings decline. But by then, Lou Grant had already proven something that every other show on this list either validated or violated. Audiences will follow characters into unfamiliar genres if the new context demands more from them. Conclusion. So what do all these shows teach us? Looking at these 13 examples, a clear pattern emerges. The genre shifts that succeeded almost always moved toward greater seriousness and complexity. Lou Grant, Trapper John, Angel, and Boston Legal all elevated their source material's dramatic stakes. Star Trek, the animated series, maintained artistic ambition despite the format change. Even Benson succeeded by finding a format that better served its character. The failures share a different quality. They move toward less sophisticated territory. Galactica 1980 dumbed down a space opera for children. The Brady Bunch Hour turned actors into reluctant variety performers. Baywatch Nights chased a trend its budget couldn't support. And AfterMASH, and this is key, failed because it didn't commit to the dramatic potential its creators later wished they'd pursued. Larry Gelbart's confession might be the most instructive quote in this entire history. If he had to do it over again, he'd make AfterMASH more dramatic, not less. The lesson networks repeatedly failed to learn across 3 decades was simple. Audiences will follow characters into unfamiliar genres if the new context demands more from them. They will not follow characters into contexts that demand less. Ed Asner thought Lou Grant was impossible. It won 13 Emmys. Sometimes the impossible gamble is exactly the right one, as long as you're betting on elevation, not reduction. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into television history, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which of these shows you actually remember watching. I'll see you in the next one.